Hi there. In this video, we will talk about the second data type in Python, which is tuple. Last one we talked about list, but in this one we will talk about the second data type, which is tuple. And as you remember from the previous video that we have four data types: lists, tuples, sets, and dictionaries. And we said last time that list, it's a collection of items that has been ordered or indexed and can be changeable, where we can add, delete, and modify any of the items. And we can even add duplicate items. But in this video, we talk about tuples, which is a collection of items. And in this way, it's similar to lists. They are indexed or ordered. However, we cannot change the tuple. It means once we set up the items, we cannot do anything about their number or their content. If we need to do so, we have to change the tuple into list and then return it back to tuple. And this is what I'm going to make it with you in this video. In the coming two videos, we will discuss sets and dictionaries. So with this in mind, let us talk about the items that we will discuss in this video. First, we need to define in details the tuple, then how to access the tuple, which will be similar to the functions we use it in lists, and how can we add items to tuple. But when we come to removing items or even adding items, we will change the tuple into lists, and then we return it back to tuple. And the new feature that we have it in tuple that doesn't exist in list, we call it unpack the tuple, where we can split the tuple into small elements or individual elements and then print them out. And finally, we do sorting for the tuple. So what is the tuple? It's a group of multiple items that are ordered or indexed by 0, 1, 2, 3. However, we call tuple is immutable or unchangeable data type that cannot be changed. And what we mean by that, if I have a tuple here of 5 elements and I need to change any one of them, I need to change it into lists and then I return it back to tuple. Let us look at the first type of the tuple that I put it here. And of course, by looking at this slide, you might feel this is similar to what we discussed in the previous video. Yes, I did the same, so you can understand how to differentiate between tuple and list. So I created 4 tuples here. The difference between the previous video and this video that all the lists, they have square brackets, but all the tuples have round bracket. So here you can see that we have 4 tuples. If I copy them and I put them here on the compiler and try to run the code after cleaning all the tuples. So please, before you run anything, make sure to clean it up from any items that prevent the code. And here we can run the code. You can see that it prints all the 4 tuples. And they put all of them in a one long line separated by round brackets. Now we can do the same function we did it in list, which is rounding or looping around the tuple. So here I say, let us add the first 3 tuples and then create a new tuple. So a tuple could be a total of multiple tuples. And this doesn't conflict with the changeable because each tuple is the same, but we add them to create a new tuple. And we can even multiply the tuple, so we can double up the tuple, as you can see here. So I say tuple 6 will be equal to tuple 3 times 2, and then I say print T6. And I will remove the previous one to clear off the screen. And run the code. And here you see that tuple 3 has been doubled. And then we can even identify number 3 in tuple 2, how many times have been repeated by using the function or method called count. And this is what we did in our previous video when we talked about list, but let me show it to you quickly here that we can even use the same function, we use it in lists to search for a certain item and see how many times have been repeated. So in this long tuple, I would like to search for number 3. How many times have been repeated? And when I make it, I get the result 3, which means number 3 has been repeated 3 times in this tuple. So from the first slide, we learned that tuple could be similar to lists in having strings or integers or Boolean or mix. The only difference between them that lists, they have square brackets, but tuple has round bracket. So this is the first point that we need to keep in mind. And now let us see what are the features that we have it in tuple that we can create a tuple of one item. And this is what you can see it here on this screen. So I create one item in tuple, which is apple. So here, with this in mind, I will say friend. And guess what? It tells me that I have a tuple of one item. But if I don't put this comma here, it will consider this one as a string. So if I go run, you see here it's a string. So what does it mean? To differentiate between a tuple of one item and a string is to put comma at the end of the tuple here, but the rest will be the same. Now, the next point is, can we count the number of items in the tuple? We can use function length that can tell us how many items we have it in the tuple, and this was similar to lists. So if we take the function and run the code here, we can see that we have 5 items or elements in this tuple. So length is the function that can help us to identify the number of items per tuple. Also, we did another function in the previous video, which we call it a slicing. We can use a slicing with tuple in the same way we did with list. And if you remember, we say 0 is the first item, -1 is the last item. If we put a space in the beginning, it means we ask to do the slicing start from the first one up to the last number before the number is mentioned, which is here 2. So we take 0 and 1. Number 3 here, we can do the slicing by having a number at the beginning, but we make a space at the end, which means we start counting from 3rd item up to the end. So I strongly encourage you, if you haven't watched my previous video of lists, is to stop the video, go back, watch video of lists, and then come back to tuple, and you will see there is a lot of similarities between the 2 types of data type, that when you study, you make one note for lists and tuple to see their similarity, and this will help your mind to remember them quickly. The next point, which also I mentioned in lists, that we can check for a certain item in tuple in the same way we did for lists. So here I create a tuple of several items, and I need to check for the word true in this tuple. And if it exists, I need to get a reply, yes, it's there. And when you click here, you will get, yes, it is there. But now let me put, for example, 50. And we know that 50 doesn't exist in this table. So when I click, I will get the other reply, which means no, I couldn't find. And we use the same loop in the previous video of lists. But starting from this slide onwards, we see that tuple is different from lists in modification or changeability. It means we cannot add to the tuple, we cannot remove anything from the tuple, but we can delete the whole tuple. How can we work around this hurdle? So for example, I put here the same function I did it for lists, and I say go to the second item in tuple, which is number 134, this one, and change it to 56 and run the code, and the answer you will get an error message. So how can I work around this one? First, we change the tuple into lists. And this is what I have it here. So we change a new list, we call it my list. And for my list, I say, change my tuple into list. So I say list my tuple. Now I have a my list that has 5 elements. Then I say change the first item into my list, make it 56. And then I change the list back to tuple. So I say my tuple will be tuple of my list. And then run the code. You see now I changed the second item in my tuple by doing a list and then change it back to tuple. In the same way, we can do the same here. Can I change the second item in the tuple by adding several items? Yes, we can do that. And here is the right code. So here I have my tuple of 5 items. The first thing I do is to change the tuple into list. So I say list my tuple. Then for the first item, which is 56, this 34, I say I would like to add 56 false, female, 873, XYZ, and put all of them instead of this item 34. And then change it back into tuple and then print it and tell me the number of items in the new tuple. So here we go. So we start by ABC. But instead of 34, I added 56 false, female, 873, XYZ, and then I go back to my original tuple, which is true, 40, male. And if we count all these items, we see them 9 items. So you can tell how can I change a certain element or add more elements to the table, to the tuple by doing a list and then return back to tuple. Another thing we can do it, which is insert. We used insert method back in lists, but we can also do it here in tuple by converting the tuple into lists and then run the code and then return it back to tuple. And here we can see that we add XYZ, inserting XYZ instead of 30, next to 34, and then we run the code. So here we have 5 elements, but when I add another item XYZ, it became 6 elements. So we can use insert and we can use the slicing to add up more items to the tuple. So please remember the golden rule is if you need to do any changes in the tuple, change it first into list and then return it back to tuple. Also, we can append the tuple by adding one word, which is false, add it to the tuple. So here I create a tuple of 5 elements, but then I change the tuple into list, and then I need to append my list by adding word false, and then return it back to tuple. Here, if you see, my new tuple has 6 elements. The original 5 plus false. So we can use append to insert an item at the end, or we can use insert to infuse any item in the middle of the tuple. The next point is extend. We extend the original tuple by adding another one. And we can do the same thing by changing tuple into list. So please remember the golden rule from this video is to how to create the table, how to change the tuple by creating a list and then return it back to tuple. I'm sorry if I'm switching between tuple and table because they are a bit confusing. So here we run the code And then we can see that our original tuple has been extended into 10 items. So we can use extend. Now, so I talked about modification or changing the tuple. How can we remove an item from the tuple? We cannot say remove because we say that tuple is immutable. So what we can do, change it into a list, remove the item and return it back to tuple. And here we go. So we have this tuple, and now I need to remove the word true, which is the first time it was mentioned here, and then leave the other items. So you can see we start by ABC, 34, but then we drop off true, and then 40, true, male, false, true, and so on. So by doing this, we can remove the first occurrence of the element. But how can we remove all the occurrences as we did in the previous video? That here we can make a loop that remove all the items that is true from the tuple. And by doing this, we can remove all the items by running this code. For item in list my list, if this item is true, and this is what I need to remove from my code, let us remove this item and then return it back to a tuple and print it out. So again, to add or delete or modify any tuple, you need to change it into a list. The only function which is common between list and tuple is delete. So in the modification process, we need to change tuple into list before we do anything, except if you would like to delete the tuple completely, you can say delete. And if you go back to my video, you will see I use the same function with list. Of course, how do we know that has been deleted? Let us print it. So if I say print tuple 4 and run it, it will give me an error message because tuple 4 has been deleted. If I would like to double check it, let us put a hash sign next to del and then run the code and it will show me here the tuple. So this can tell you that if you put del, it's gonna delete the whole tuple. But how can I delete the last item from the tuple? So I'm gonna leave the whole tuple as it is, but I remove the last item. So here we call it pop. So to pop, you can either mention the item that you need to put it here, or if you leave it empty, it will pop the last item from the tuple. So here the last item, which is false, has been deleted, and the rest of the tuple stay as it is. And the next function, which we call it unpack, and this is brand new in tuple that didn't exist in list, where you can reverse the tuple into items. So here, if I say tuple 4 and run it, it will show me all the items of tuple 4 item by item. Now, if I say tuple 4 and I mention it, but then I say this is item A, this is item B, this is C, D, E, F, G, and so on, and then I reverse it this way. And then I say print item A. So I'm gonna put the code here and run it. Here it prints each one. Of course, to make sure that you're following, I'm gonna delete, for example, this one, and I say run, and you can see here, it drops off item G. So unpacking, it means first you create the code, and then you unpack it into the individual elements of this tuple, and then you can print out each element. But there is another feature you need to know in unpacking, which is putting asterisk here before certain element. And by doing that, you consider the rest of the tuple as one list. Let me show you what I mean here. So here we have tuple 4. And I unpack tuple by having first item ABC as A, 34 as B, true as C, but starting from 40 up to the end, this number of elements, I consider them as one list. How can I refer to this list? By putting asterisk and put D. Let me show you here. So you see the first item is ABC, second one 34, third one true. The rest of the tuple, they show in square brackets to tell you that these are lists, or these are items included in one list. But let me show you something interesting here, that you don't have to put the list at the end of the tuple, but you can put it anywhere. So for example, here I put A, B asterisk, C, and D. It means it will show me the first item, ABC. It will show me the last two items, false and true. But between ABC and false and true, which are these one, 34 true, 40 true, male, all of them, they fall in one list. So you don't have to make the list at the end of the printout, but you can put it anywhere. Also, you can put it here under C. So let me show you here. So instead of putting at B, I put it in front of C, asterisk C, and you print out, you can see here, first item ABC, second item 34, last item true, and between them, I put all the items in a list. What do we call this feature? We call it unpacking the tuple into individual elements. The next one that you need to be aware, which is sorting. And sorting here, similar to the sorting we did it in lists. So here we first convert the tuple into list, sort it out, and then return it back to tuple. So please remember, any change you do in tuple, you have to change it into lists, and then you return it back into tuple. Here I sort them ascending, but we can sort them descending by putting a reverse. So here for sort, I will put a reverse equals true, and then run it. And here you can see we sort them descending, or we can sort them without a capital letter or lower letter. So we put key str, which for a string lower, and then it will ignore the capital letter. So here we put key equals str lower, and I will put here a few of them in capital letter to show you that it will ignore the capital letter. So here mango, and then here I will put pineapple, and then I run it. You will see it sorts out everything and ignore capital or lower case. So I hope you remember all the key points in this small video: how to define the tuple, how to add any item to the tuple, delete any item from the tuple, sort the tuple, unpack the tuple, and hopefully in the next video we talk about sets, and the following one, dictionaries. Thank you so much, and if you have any question, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. Thank you. Bye-bye.